Welcome to Black Christmas Revisited. I'm Lynn Griffin, and I played Claire.
And I'm Art Hindle, and I played Chris. We're here at the original location. We're here to see what it looks like 30 years later.
Black Christmas was considered truly groundbreaking back in 1974, and it's still captivating audiences today.
Now, we've compiled interviews with filmmakers, and we hope to give you an inside look at the making of one of the greatest horror films of all time.
So why don't you join us as we revisit the set and the people of Black Christmas?
Hello?
Around Christmas time, ironically, a company called Vision 4 came to August Films with Black Christmas.
Black Christmas actually wasn't a very hard sell in 1974, and I was a novice in the business, and it fooled me. I thought that it always goes that easily.
I became head of the production for August Films, not really knowing what I was doing most of the time in those days, because that was over 30 years ago, remember?
Bob Clark had already directed a couple of very successful lower budget horror films, so he was a known commodity.
Even 1 week before we started shooting, Finn came to me and said, "Are you sure? Are you sure we should spend this money?" And I said, yes, without any hesitation. This is the film that we should do.
Well, who the hell is he?
Good night.
How long was that kiss in 74? I think you took a little liberty there, sir.
You remember that scene?
Yes,
Where
I do.
Chris says goodnight to Claire.
Yeah, you feel about the same, but you had that big coat on, but you feel about the same.
Yeah, and then he never sees her again.
Aw,
He goes off and plays hockey.
and you never found out what happened to me.
No.
I'm still up there.
Listen,
Part of me is still up there. What?
can I show you the rest of the house?
Is that like,
Upstairs.
oh my goodness, he wasn't like this in 74. Let's go.
Sound funny. What's the matter?
Nothing's the matter. I just want to talk to you.
Why don't you tell me now?
Because I want to talk to you face to face.
We were amazingly lucky. We got Olivia Hussey right after Romeo and Juliet, huge hit. She was well on her way to being a star. Margot had done Sisters, the Brian De Palma film, so she was substantial. It was sort of, I think, the biggest commercial Canadian film to date, so it had that going for it. Keir Delay had the time, and we were able to fit him into the schedule by shooting him out.
You can't make a decision like that. You hadn't even asked me.
I wasn't even going to tell you.
Jess, I want us to have a baby.
I was living in London at the time, and my agent called me one day and said, "There's a film offer here." My parents lived in New York, so I thought it'd be an opportunity to see them, and it was a paying job, and Olivia Hussey was in it. So the fact that she was in it, I had admired her work in Romeo and Juliet. So for all those reasons, I said yes.
Just know Claire is dead. I can just feel it.
Andrea Martin was not Andrea Martin yet. She was just emerging into being Andrea. John Saxon was a great character actor, coming out of being a leading man and just beginning to work his way into character.
When I read the script, I immediately sensed, I suppose, the whole dynamic of the story, the whole, well, how good it was woven together, and that there were lots of switches and unexpected turns.
And they hadn't seen her all day. She's only 13 years old, Lieutenant, and my husband's a trucker. He's out on the road, and so I came over here.
Yeah, well, is it really so unusual for her to be just a few hours late, Mrs. Gwynn?
The John Saxon role was originally to be played by Edmund O'Brien, who had won an Academy Award and was a very famous actor at the time.
Edmund, we sent the script down to his agency. And they said back he was very excited, very happy to do it.
We had a 3-day grace before Mr. O'Brien was required to act his part. He arrived on a Monday night. I went and met him at the airport, and when he landed his plane at the airport, he didn't know where he was.
Due to reasons of his health, I met with Edmund. He flew in that night. We came to his hotel and saw a man who, told this many times, who took about 40 minutes to put his shirt on and button his tie, and he was suffering from really mid to late range Alzheimer.
He didn't know whether he was in Toronto or Chicago or New York. He was very confused.
And he told the story of he had a 9-year-old son, and I'm gonna get teary for God's sakes. His 9-year-old boy sending him off saying, "Daddy, you can do it, Daddy, this is the one, you're gonna make film."
But I didn't say anything. I thought, well, maybe he's tired, maybe he's confused, and once he's had a bit of a rest and had some dinner, he'll have all of his marbles together.
And I knew it was going to fall on me not to do it because we were shooting in 5 to 10 degrees below weather.
Well, then we knew that Mr. O'Brien was not capable of playing the part.
I really, I'm not lying to myself, I would have taken the chance. I said after that to my co-producer, I think we might risk this. He's coherent, strange, because people with that stage of Alzheimer's, he could be coherent, he'd learn some of the script. He would go blank at times, but I said, all right, I can cover that. He's still Edmund O'Brien, he's still got that personality.
I immediately phoned Bob and went over to his house and told Bob the news that we were shooting on the detective the next morning. We don't have any detective.
But then Jerry said, "Bob, are you kidding? He's got 3 nights shooting, and if it's 10 degrees out there, it's going to be below 0.
I had some very, very short and very tough words to say to his agent, who should never have sent him out in such a condition, who must have known that Mr. O'Brien was not capable of playing that part. That was a big glitch.
We had to let Edmund go. He did do another film after that. He did a Frankenheimer film, so it wasn't his last film. Which cheered me considerably.
Bob phoned Los Angeles through contacts, and a big favor to us, John Saxon, a very nice man, came at a moment's notice.
Bob had some idea. I think he knew that I had spent a little bit of time with John in Los Angeles, and he said, we don't have time to go through an agent thing and a casting thing. I gotta have somebody up here, like tomorrow. So I called John Saxon. He agreed to read the script, and I think he headed for the airport a day or 2 later, and we're all very, very grateful that he did.
This is the first scene I did in the movie. It was taken from the airport to the set. It must have been about 2 in the morning, and it was cold and windy. I think it was appreciated that I could make it up and get on the set and learn the lines and perform.
Don't bunch up. There'll be 2 sets of dogs leading the way. Just spread out and follow them.
Hi, Mom. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, come on, I'm not drunk.
No, I have some stuff to do in the afternoon, and then I was just going to get the 7:20 train into the city. No, we're just having a little party.
Come on, you gotta be kidding.
No, I've had a couple.
You were supposed to be my boyfriend. You would have given me a
I
present,
know.
wouldn't you? More than just that kiss, that very tender, chaste
Come on, you
kiss.
like that kiss. The fur coat I had.
Oh yeah,
I
you
wish
were
I had
big.
that
You were
again.
the big bear
And,
on
do you remember
campus.
this was the
Oh,
where
this
the
is
phone
where
calls?
Margot answered the phone.
The phone calls and
Yes, and we all listened and thought, well, that's not that scary,
they
is
weren't
it?
saying anything. They
Not
only
on
added
set,
all that
'cause
bad language
when,
later.
Yeah, when you're
They-
on set, they just say, you know, sometimes
Go to
they-
heck.
or
they'd say
rhubarb,
things like-
rhubarb.
yeah. And
But then when I
when it's
heard what it
nothing-
really was and how blue his conversation was, even for now, what are you looking at? What?
I thought I heard something upstairs.
Oh no, we're alone in
Don't
the
you
house,
hear?
aren't we? I
Let's
don't
go
hear
check.
anything. No, no, come on, you know what
Fo-
happens
follow
when
me,
I
Lynn.
go upstairs. Oh, this is why I died and you got to live. 'Cause
Just
I went
follow me.
upstairs.
Everything's going to be okay.
Oh, please,
Wait
no.
a minute.
Billy, something.
From the beginning, I wanted to see if we could get away with a film. I don't think it had ever been done where you never saw the killer. Clearly, when the cameraman could be Billy climbing.
Well, I'd spoken to Bob about an idea I had for mounting the camera on my shoulder, and I had a special harness made up that allowed me to have lots of flexibility, so that when I climbed the trellis and everything, I got both hands in, and also when I looked up at the top of the trellis, I was able to raise the front of the rig so that the camera lens itself would tilt up and be able to look up. And we used that throughout the film. I'm sure we used it in the closet when we strangled Lynn with the clothes bag and that, and up in the attic when you go into the rage and all the rest of that. That was all done that way.
We shaped him, shadows fortunately changed dimensions, so we found it possible to make Billy appear slender at times and rather burly at times. That depends on what the shadow is doing. You showed his hands clearly where he's about to dispatch house mother. So that's probably the clearest thing to a view of him. You get the eye.
Agnes, don't you tell what we did, Agnes.
I can't remember whose eye we used.
I'm positive it was Keir. It was a special lens that was fit in his eye.
I know I didn't do it physically. I was not my eye peeking through or my body in shadow. I definitely did not do that. And I don't think I did any of the voices.
There were illusions that were to make you think possibly Keir Delay was Billy, but the truth is the film, again, I watched it carefully, was very honest in that. It could not have been Keir, it never was. We didn't use his voice ever for Billy.
Please stop. Oh, God. What do you want?
It was done with an amalgam of voices. I remember the actor Frank Mancuso was one of them. I did some of them. There's a young lady whose name slips my mind who was very much a part of it. It's a compilation of about 5 actors' voices.
Nick Mancuso was brought in to deliver what was, in a sense, a script of the phone call.
He's expanded his act.
I remember what Nick brought to it was an intensity that I certainly had never seen before, and I'm not sure if I've ever seen it since. It was chilling, the intensity just inside the studio of what he delivered. Okay, now what I've got here is an attempt at a phone call, but with reverb on it, because I think I was getting ready to mix some elements together just to see what you get.
What your mother and I must know is... just like having a wart removed.
I hardly knew how to approach it at the time, so I listened to a lot of John Cage, who prepared his piano, where his instrument was not so much piano, but prepared piano, in which he would put various objects, nuts and bolts and popsicle sticks and things inside his grand piano on top of the strings. Well, I've had an upright piano, so I couldn't lay things on top of the strings, but I hung them from the tuning pegs of the piano so that the objects would be against the strings, and the objects were forks, knives, combs, little shrimp forks, I remember. That was the most satisfying instrument because I could control it more accurately. And then these sounds were processed through reverb chambers, the very primitive trick. You incrementally change it, which required some equipment modification at the time. Now it would be nothing. But then we just had tape recorders and 2 or 3 different tape speeds, and sometimes I let the tape play but just held the reel back with my thumb, which may have contributed to the burning out of the motor of the tape recorder, and backwards and forwards and that sort of thing. And that's basically how it happened.
This room was where a lot of the main action took place in Black Christmas. It's where the Christmas party happened, and a lot of the people getting together for the parties, where they had the kids' party. And this is the room where first couple of weeks before we started filming, I was in rehearsal with Olivia Hussey, who hadn't worked for a while, and she wanted to get a jump start on some of the scenes, and Keir Delay couldn't come into town right away, so I got an opportunity to work with her and Bob Clark, and it was in this room that I witnessed some of Bob's genius.
Hi, Peter.
Other than Olivia Hussey, I didn't work with the cast of Black Christmas. I think there's one shot where I storm out of a door past John Saxon. I had no dialogue with him, so we really, other than probably being introduced when I came to shoot that shot. So really, my total experience in working with anybody was with Olivia Hussey.
You selfish bitch. You're talking about killing our baby as though you were having a wart removed.
Now can you see why I didn't want to tell you?
What the hell are you trying to do to me?
What are you doing to yourself?
Jess, let's get one thing straight. You are not going to abort that baby.
Bob Clark had total artistic control of the shooting and making of Black Christmas, and nobody at any level interfered with that. Black Christmas is Bob Clark's film.
In particular scenes that were successful for me, I think the fairly famous choral scene where the intercutting with the children singing the Christmas carols with the murder of Margot Kidder.
Don't tell what we did.
Well, that's the basic premise of the picture. It's Christmas and horror. It's black, and it's Christmas. So visually, we took those two elements and used them. The Christmas lights outside, there's a lot of them. In every frame, every time you see the outside of the house, it's almost always night in the darkness, and there's always the Christmas lights on.
He had 3 or 4 houses on the short list. As a director, of course, Bob had a feel for the right house to have the right atmosphere It had to have a threatening interior, which it does and did. And it took him about a week and a half to 2 weeks of searching, and he settled on that house, and we as the producers approved that.
Well, the house is a major part of designing the picture. It's a character in the film. It's the framework for the whole story, for all of the drama, and it's a very critical visual element because of what happens there and how it needs to support what happens there.
Oh, we searched all of Toronto. The house was, as you say, core of the, and again, this was a perfect house. It was a grand old classic, and it looked like a perfect house to have a Christmas party, and it certainly was a sorority house, but it had all the trappings and underlings and little layers that made it also a spooky house.
It also had to have geography, what we call camera geography. In other words, we had to be able to get certain shots that were important to the storyline. The staircase, and the way the staircase comes down, works towards the front entrance, and the telephone scene at the bottom. There's a number of scenes that are pivotal scenes in the picture that take place on that telephone. And to be able to shoot those freely and openly, and also to be able to see the people coming down the stairs, to shoot from the top of the stairs from somebody's point of view, and to shoot over Olivia looking back up and seeing footsteps.
I've been getting
arriving
obscene
so that
phone
we know
calls, and I
she's
want
in
to know what
jeopardy,
can be
and she
done
doesn't
about
yet
it.
know it. So that's a very important
all right,
asset
I'll
about
hold,
that,
but only for a
that
moment.
house. One of the final things actually that helped make the decision for us.
Peter, Jesus, you scared the hell out of me.
The biggest logistical problem that I can remember that we had was basically making snow when there wasn't any. And we ended up using a foam material that the fire department came up with.
I remember putting down snow, and what a challenge that was. We did a lot less of it than I wanted to do.
Although it looks very snowy outside the house, the snow was really not happening. It was, and I was amazed at this. I hadn't been in Canada very long, and I thought, well, if you can't get snow here, where can you get it?
But I always remember going back to the location, 2 or 3 months later, and they had the greenest lawn in town, and I think it had something to do with the foam material. I think it acted as a fertilizer.
I'm sitting in my final resting place. Here we are in the attic. I'm just rocking slightly because I'm having a memory of my rocking chair. Behind me is the ladder that I was dragged up to this lovely place, which is actually much more grimy and dirty and more attic-like and more gloomy and dark than it is right now. It looks pretty nice now. But I was dragged up here and deposited here. You remember all that, kind of in the rocking chair. And do you remember Claude, the cat, the beautiful cat, the Hollywood cat, hired for his looks, not particularly his talent. Anyway, Claude didn't really want to play very much. He didn't like being thrown on my lap by Bob Clark, the director, because he didn't want to jump. Anyway, Bob Clark threw him on my lap, and cats have claws. That was nice memory. And my face was sprayed with catnip so that he'd lick my face. But the most fun was actually, I just happened to bring my security blanket along. I haven't been able to actually go anywhere without this. But I'm just demonstrating what happened. You probably have one of these at home. I wouldn't suggest you try this. As I slip into something more uncomfortable. You see, when you actually have the bag over your face and you try to breathe, you see how it goes like this? That's no good. So, uh-oh. Yeah. Uh-oh. Just hard enough. Oh, yeah. So you see, I I could breathe. I wasn't really in danger. But it's very uncomfortable and very hot. And I think at one point they actually broke for lunch and left me there. But anyway, so I had this hole. I was able to actually hold my breath long enough, as you see in the movie, to not look like I was alive. I was actually, but I am here today to tell you about it. And you know what's really great about this? When I go to the dry cleaners, I get recognized.
So I arrived at lunchtime, which of course was about 6 or 7 in the evening, real time. And Bob, after he'd finished, took me aside and said, "I'd like you to play a little character part today." I said, "Really?" I said, "What is he?" He said, "I'd like you to play the taxi driver." I said, "Oh, sure, I'd love to, because I'm a hack."
Hey! Anybody there? Anybody there?
I got paid $126 for that.
There were a lot of little moments. I remember Margot coming to the set to do her famous turtles screw for 2 days scene.
Did you know that there's a certain species of turtle there's a certain species of turtle that can screw for 3 days without stopping?
She was supposed to be imbibing, and she was, to get in character. She was definitely there.
You don't believe me, do you? Well, I mean, how could I make something like that up? Barb, dear, No, really, they did 3 days, 24 hours a day. Can you believe that, 3 days? I'm lucky if I get 3 minutes.
Look, I really don't think you're taking this as seriously as
Hi,
you
we
should.
thought
I
we'd
mean,
move away from the house to the police station of the film. This is where that famous scene about fellatio took place. If you remember, Margot Kidder explains to Doug McGrath, who played Sergeant Nash, that her phone number is
Fellatio 20880. Fellatio. It's a new exchange. FE.
It's a new one on me. How do you spell it?
Capital F, E, little L, Latio.
Back in the 70s, we used to preface our phone numbers with a name. I remember mine was Howard 52689, and so she explains fellatio, F-E. And so that was the humor of that moment, and it's one of the few humorous moments in our film.
Sergeant Nash, could I speak to you for a minute?
Yeah, sure, Lieutenant.
What's this?
Well, that's the number at the sorority house.
Fellatio?
Yeah, it's a new exchange. FE.
New exchange?
Yeah, Felicia. One of the girls that was in this afternoon gave it to me.
She gave it to you.
Yeah.
Nash, I don't think you could pick your nose without written instructions.
I don't really recall preparing particularly for the piano scene. It was just that I was given license to go bananas. And I think I had fun destroying a piano. I mean, it was kind of one of those things like taking a jackhammer to a car and busting it up. It was kind of like a kid given an opportunity to do something way out.
At the very end shot, I remember going into work. I think the call was 8 o'clock in the morning, and we did the shot at 5, I think it was about a quarter after 5 in the evening, and we were wrapped by about 5:30. And it was the shot at the very end of the picture where we start in on Olivia, and the camera slowly pulls out and reveals John sitting in a chair, and it keeps getting wider, and then Doug comes in and talks about reporters or whatever. Finally, everybody gets up and leaves the room. The camera holds for quite a long beat, which I thought, you know, it's pretty gutsy for Bob. And then we start to slowly pan around the room, around the upper part of the house, and we see the bedroom in which the girls had been murdered, and then another bedroom, and then we slowly end up dolling all the way down the hallway and looking up, and finally the trap door closes. And so that was quite a move.
So, here we are, 30 years later, in exactly the same spot I was at the beginning of the last scene of Black Christmas. Olivia sedated, John Saxon, the good cop, thinking everything's over, and we've dispatched the perpetrator, only to find out in the long tracking shot to the hatch in the attic that there's more to come.
We knew at the time that we were making a picture that was different and progressive for its time. We understood that, and we knew that we were pushing some boundaries in some of the ways that we approached making the picture. One hopes that one will have that kind of success, but I don't know that you envision it.
I did Enter the Dragon just probably the same year that I did Black Christmas, or within 12 months. What I felt that they shared, in my estimation, was that they would be successful. With Black Christmas, I just sensed, I think the dynamics of tension and twists, unexpected turns and so on, being something that worked, that could hold interest and deliver something that I feel more now than I did when I made it.
25 years after we made the film, I was working on a film in Los Angeles, and I ended up with a key grip that had been recommended by another person, and he said, you know, I looked up your bio on the internet, and I see that you did Black Christmas. He says, you know, one of the directors I work with, Quentin Tarantino, last Christmas was playing Black Christmas in his own theater downstairs over the holidays, and he said it was his favorite movie.
Olivia Hussey, when she arrived from Los Angeles, or no, New York, I think. She arrived from New York, and we had dinner the first night she arrived, and she turned round to me and she said, I've been to a psychic 2 days before I came here, and she said, in this film, she said, Black Christmas is going to be very, very successful. The psychic told me, she said, and it's going to make lots and lots of money. So I did have someone tell me, even before we made it, that the film was going to be a financial and a cult film, but of course at that time, none of us, except maybe Bob. I think Bob may have believed that it was going to be a gangbuster film.
So I thought it was a good, scary, classic horror story, and those have a way of surviving. And I hope to break new ground by the attitude and treatment of the actors and the reality of their world. And thirdly, employing some, if not new, certainly reworked and rethought cinematic ideas. So I hoped it would, not what it's become, I guess. It's an interesting film, a hit film on one level and a cult film on another. It's unusual, but I couldn't say that. I hoped.
We won't be long, Mrs. Mack.
All right, dear.
See you later.
It's been exciting to come back to the house, the scene, and to realize that although things change, a lot of things stay the same. Thanks for letting me be a part of this. the police left and we took over to shoot our movie in. And that's it. So thank you very much. Hope you're saving all these. You'll need some outtakes.
He was, and how blue his conversation was, even for now. What are you looking at? What?
I thought I heard something upstairs.
Oh, no.
Just follow me. Everything's going to be okay.
Oh, please, no.
Wait a minute.
Billy, something. You scared me. You weren't supposed to do that.
It was me all
He's
along.
the murderer. He wants to do the sequel. And I'll be the dead person upstairs still.
You see, it was
I look
me
old
all
enough
along.
now. I wish he'd been this romantic in 1974.
Come on,
Okay.
let's go downstairs.
Oh, okay.
It's all over now.
Oh,
It's all right.
it's
You're
safe.
out of the wrap.